Smoothie is going to be a pain in the butt. And yet we took a vow together, a bunch of us, and we have stuck to it, and no more straws. And we said, it's not enough, it's just a gesture, but it's the beginning of the conversation about what would be your last straw, or yours, from talk to walk. Enough might just be enough. So tonight we're here to talk about that. And I'm really honored that we have amazing people to guide us through this conversation. We asked a healer and an environmental organizer, an artist, several artists, and a young teen leader to be part of this conversation, and for all of us to be in this together. Tonight, we hope to launch our green team that several of you already said yes to, and we want to really activate starting with tonight. We got plenty of small community groups going already. Here's another one. This is the night. And so I want to begin by inviting a monologue that will inspire us into what's going on here. And then I'll explain exactly who we got here tonight and what it's all about. So Adena, I'm inviting you to come channel for us the Queen of Beasts. Nicely, it's a spiral.
Yeah, it's great. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashemayim ve'et haaretz. Bang. There was nothing. And then, within an everything, all nothing was born. All time and space, a multitudinal multiverse that defies the nature of entropy, was smashed from oblivion, and everything and everyone and everywhere came from within it. And in 7 days, all this. And a second ago, you were born. But in the second after that Big Bang, all physics broke down and the universe smashed through. Planck. 10 minus 43 seconds. 1032 Kelvin. The Planck scale is a physical scale beyond where physical theories can't apply. During the Planck epoch, all physics, all cosmology are dominated by the quantum effects of gravity. Grand unification. 10 minus 36 seconds. 1029 Kelvin. Three forces of the standard model, electromagnetism, strong interaction and weak interaction, are unified as the electronuclear force. This is perhaps divine. Electroweak, 10 minus 32 seconds, 1028 Kelvin. Cosmic inflation expands space by a factor of the order of a number so large of a number over time the universe cools. Quark, 10 minus 12 seconds, 1012 Kelvin. The forces of the standard of the divine model have separated, but energies are too high for quarks to turn into hadrons, instead forming a plasma. Hadron, 10 minus 6 seconds, 1010 Kelvin. And then they are. The quarks are bound into hadrons. A matter and antimatter. Asymmetry eliminates antihadrons. 1 second. before all this. And then there is this. 4 days later, then there is me. I roamed this land, one of the largest land carnivores of all time. Fearsome and beautiful, and terrifying as night. Fair as the firmament, like grace on a mountainside, and raging as the tempest, more luminous than the lightning. A force of the heavens. I am the very foundations of this earth. And you shall love me, and you shall despair. I ruled this land. I heard all. I saw all. I smelled you all. My teeth crushed bones. My spittle poison. I was an apex. I am a queen. My rule was dread. All hear me roar and shake. I gave you this, and it was yours to protect, but never to keep. Instead, you destroyed it. How dare you? This fair, this beautiful, this perfect imperfection, this wild sanctuary, this Eden, how dare you? With your frail hands and your frail minds, how dare your frail bodies destroy all that was given before you? How dare you? You should thank me. You should honor your inheritance. Instead, you steal from it like it's yours to butcher. It was never yours. You should fall upon your knees. You should bow before my greatness and beg my forgiveness. You have no honor for it, or for me, or for the lands, or the sea, or the heavens of this earth. You are a cancer. You are a virus. You are a parasite stripping its host, stripping its legacy. How dare you crush my bones for power? How dare you crush my image for thrills and scares? I am the apex. I was a queen, and you sullied my gift. How dare you?
Thank you to Adena Walker for channeling the mother of all beasts. This is a monologue written by one of our guests here tonight, and I'm going to invite you all to come up on stage right now. Stephen Laughton, who is a playwright and is currently the writer-in-residence at the Museum of Natural History, the Astrophysics department. Go get that gig. Stephen wrote 2 monologues especially for tonight. This was one of them. He's joined by Phil Aroneanu, who is a lab Schuler, co-founder of 350.org, and a major environmental and community organizer and activist and leader. We're delighted that you're here and invite you to come up as well. Janna Diamond, who is a healer of many sorts and an environmental activist and artist. And Ella Goodman, who's a lab Shul Bar Mitzvah of very recent fame, who made such a great Bar Mitzvah speech. We said we want you to be part of it. So they were the original panel, and then a couple months ago, after watching One Strange Rock pretty much wrapped, I contacted Darren, whose son Henry had an awesome Bar Mitzvah a few months ago, and I asked Darren and Ari, his co-partner on this, like, would you guys share One Strange Rock with us as we launch the Green Team? So they weren't sure they were going to be here tonight. So glad you are. We're going to have you share just a trailer of the show, and later this year we're excited to have a full night where we get to share a full episode and hear from both of you and other guests you might want to bring about what is this effect from space upon our activation. And we're also hoping to have an entire night with Stephen's drama and many more ideas for our Green Team. So for now, I'd like to ask all of you who I just named up to the stage. We have chairs for all. And Ezra, I believe we want to start with a trailer. So folks, please come on stage.
I am going to tell you about the most incredible place. And you know what? You're walking on it. Our planet is literally bursting with life.
There's so much activity, and our planet is right in the middle of it.
I really wish that everyone could see the world the way that I've had a chance to see it.
The strangest place in the whole universe might just be right here.
How many of you have had a chance to see One Strange Rock? Okay, well, we're hoping tonight will be a boost in that direction. Go Netflix. Darren, thanks for being here. Shana Tova, brother. We'd love to hear from you a few words about what was the motivation for this? How did it feel to delve into this fantastic task and any of the impact so far?
Well, both me and Ari come from a science background. We're not just filmmakers. Ari was trained, has a PhD in neuroscience, and I was trained very young in field biology. And so our company is actually called Protozoa, single-celled animals, so we've always been leaning that way. And we've kind of had this mission for a long time to try to bring science to the masses, especially at a moment in time when science is under attack and only, it's turned into a political tool. So when we started to hear about this project, we were excited because we felt like there was a lot of stuff in the marketplace that dealt with climate change and all the terrible things that are happening to the planet. But this project is all about how beautiful the planet is. In fact, in 10 hours of TV, we never mentioned the word climate change, and that was on purpose because we just figured, but it's almost like, by showing the opposite, how beautiful, I think people would assume the dangers of seeing it possibly disappear. So it was all about showing the complexity of all these systems and how they interact in a global scale.
Ari, you want to talk about any of the reactions or responses? Or think there should be a mic right in front of you? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. The question to Ari is like, what are some of the consequences, impacts, surprising or unusual that you received so far?
Well, I don't know if I can quite speak to impacts. I wish there was more impacts because the world was pretty much the same as the world was when we made it. But I would say, I mean, I had an impact, and hopefully other people had an impact. I mean, one of the things, Darren's right when he talks about why we went about doing it and doing it this way, that the idea was to show the complexity of the planet and the systems, and with it the fragility, because it's not just a portrait of the planet, but it's also a portrait of how easily and how nearly in many ways things went wrong before, so that you can see that things going wrong now is not something unimaginable, but totally imaginable. But the other thing that it does, by telling the story through the eyes of astronauts who've gone off-world, is it communicates how you can see things differently, and by moving yourself to a new perspective, whether it's a perspective of a day taken apart or a piece of time taken apart, to look at things in a new way, that you can reboot yourself, and you can find a different vision, and you can, what you once took for granted, it is possible to see fresh, and that's as important as anything else. So I think that's what we're hoping people can do through this experience of what the astronauts were able to show us, of how they were changed. Because each of these astronauts was totally, whether they were up there, as Darren sometimes says, for 8 days, which was the least, to 600 days, which was the most, they were all radically changed in how they felt and how they viewed the planet and their role in it. And that's what hopefully can be the effect of it.
Thank you. So we're hoping the series is really stunning to, like I said, spend some time this coming year watching maybe episode 10, right? Which is really like brings it home in such a powerful way. I've watched the series in tears several times, and I'm not a science geek. But it is really stunning, and the overview effect is just, it's about awe, which is why we wanted to bring it tonight. So thank you, Ari and Darren, for being here tonight, for giving us a glimpse of this overview effect. I invite you to step down if you want, and then we'll find the time and make this happen as part of our Green Team initiative. Anything else you want to say?
It's on Netflix right now, so when you go home, you could watch on that.
I'll wait for the thing. Amigo. So now that we're all here and we've been inspired, I want to invite Janna to maybe invite us to be really here. Take a breath and pause. Thanks, Phil.
Hello. Okay. Hi, everyone. So we want to actually go ahead and close our eyes for a moment. We're going to find ourselves in the rhythm of our natural breath. We're going to send that awareness down to the soles of our feet, as if you were breathing through your feet and where they're making contact with the ground, and then just further with the earth. And then bringing that awareness to your belly. The inhale and exhale. Expansion and contraction. And bringing that up towards your lungs, but even more specifically to your heart. And with each breath, letting that awareness expand just a little bit further. First to the extent of your body, and then just beyond. And then to the immediate circle of those around you. Into an even wider circle. And if you flutter your eyes open just a little bit, we're going to bring our awareness and our breath and our heart reach to the expanse of this entire room. And as we proceed with this program tonight, I want to remind you that your breath is here. It's your ally. You can call on it if and when you need it. And over to Phil here.
So Phil, I'll give you a teeny introduction. When we started planning tonight, we figured we need not only some real community organizing action, planning, but we need someone to get the science. And like many of you, I'm sure, you know, this can become so preachy and we turn off. And so the question is, how do we turn on? So Phil's task is to walk us through some of how the hell we got here. And then from there, we'll go back to Janna to guide us into some conversations with each other. Ella is going to share with us some of her words from her Bar Mitzvah and from right now, representing the activists that are kicking our butt. Stephen has one more monologue for us, and we're going to end with us having a real conversation about what are ways we want to engage this year. If you've been in conversations like this, they're not enough. And if you haven't yet, this is the time. Thank you for being here for this. Phil, take it away.
Great. Thanks for having me here tonight. The good news is you don't need to be an expert on climate science to give a presentation on climate science. I am not one, but I'm here and I'm really glad to be here, and I'll do my best. So I'm here to talk for a few minutes about the climate crisis and where we find ourselves as a human race in 5780. Like many of you, I think of Yom Kippur as a day dedicated to introspection. I reflect on what I've done, what I haven't done in the past year, and make commitments for my next revolution around the sun, which almost always makes me think about my place in the universe, the cosmos, and our place as a species in the universe. So I hope you'll bear with as we zoom out for a minute. It turns out, and I looked this up just earlier this week, that human history is pretty long, but it's not as long as the planet's. The first human-like primates roamed Africa around 200,000 years ago. Let's see if we can get this. 200,000 years ago. But Earth has been around for roughly 4.5 billion years, which is a really, really long time. It's roughly 22,000 times as long as humans. So if we compress the Earth's history into one 24-hour day, all of human history would start at 1 minute and 17 seconds before midnight. So as a species, we really haven't been around for very long. And one of the only reasons that humans were able to evolve on this planet at 1 minute and 17 seconds before midnight, from single-celled microbes emerging out of the prehistoric muck to conscious bipedal mammals, is because our atmosphere is pretty cushy. Unlike other planets in the solar system, there's just the right amount of carbon dioxide and a few other gases up in the atmosphere to act like a blanket for Earth. kind of like that. Our atmosphere lets just enough of the sun's heat in and reflects back just enough so that our land masses and our oceans stay at a relatively safe temperatures, and so that life could emerge over many, many years. It could evolve, it could thrive. So when compared to other planets, Earth is kind of like the Florida of the solar system. Temperatures are pleasant most of the time, so if you're a single-celled organism, a protozoa, you can just chill and do your evolution thing for a few million years. Everything's cool. At various moments over the course of those long, wild years before humans arrived, though, even relatively small changes in the atmosphere have caused massive fluctuations in the global climate. Like 65 million years ago, when an asteroid hit the planet and spewed debris into the atmosphere, or 74,000 years ago when a giant volcano erupted, causing plumes of gas to cloud the sun across the planet. Those things ended up having ginormous impacts. Like, for example, the killing off of all the dinosaurs and sending the Earth into a centuries-long ice age. Well, not that ice age, but you know what I'm talking about. Or flooding much of the planet's landmass. But there has never been before a moment when one species, that's us, has single-handedly been responsible for changing the chemistry of the atmosphere, endangering them and the other 8.7 million species currently living here alongside us. It's unprecedented. So how did this happen? Yes, I'm showing a graph on Kol Nidre Eve. Well, about 150 years ago...
Everybody breathe.
I don't know if it's awesome or awful, but maybe somewhere in between. About 150 years ago, some brilliant humans discovered that digging up million-year-old fossilized plants and animals in the form of oil, coal, and gas, and burning it could make our lives much, much easier. That free energy could help us get around in cars, in buses, in airplanes. It could be used to manufacture all sorts of things, like concrete and fidget spinners, for example, and it could generate electricity. All, by the way, which were soon to be very, very profitable. That discovery and the subsequent industrial revolution would radically change the humans' lives, unfolded in innumerable ways that still reverberate today. The only catch, the thing that those enterprising young industrialists in the late 1800s, early 1900s didn't quite take into account, is that it wasn't free energy at all. It had a cost. It's just that instead of bearing the cost of burning carbon fuel in the 1860 or even 100 years later in 1960, humans who would be alive in 2060 would begin to bear the real brunt of all those fossil fuel emissions. They didn't know that releasing carbon dioxide over decades and decades would add 400 billion tons of greenhouse gas to the atmosphere, radically altering the global climate, as you can see here. They couldn't have foreseen that more than half of this carbon would be emitted after 1985, more than a century after the Industrial Revolution kicked off. And since today is all about repentance and forgiveness, and I'm a big climate science nerd, I hope you'll forgive me for showing you a few more charts and graphs on Erev Yom Kippur. So the last time carbon dioxide levels were as high as they are today was 3 to 4 million years ago. And back then, tropical oceans were the temperature of bath water. The Arctic was a swampy forest, and sea levels were 60 feet higher. So we would be underwater right now. So thus far, we've talked about the beginning of human history and moved forward, but let's take a minute to turn around and start at the end and work backwards. So I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The outlook is pretty bleak. The best science says that if we don't keep global average temperatures from rising 2 degrees Celsius or less, we'll face all sorts of catastrophes like mass species die-offs, submerged coastal cities due to melting ice caps, an ocean so acidic it can't support most sea life, drought, war, famine, mass migration, starvation, and basically untold human suffering. And although some of that is already happening, we've already warmed the planet 1 degree, as you can see here. If we keep mining, drilling, and burning fossil fuels at our current breakneck pace, we'll make much of the planet unsafe or uninhabitable within the next century or two. That's within our kids' and our grandkids' lifetimes. So this isn't too far in the future. It's starting now. So since carbon dioxide tends to linger in the atmosphere for about half a century, continuing to warm the planet, we'll need to stop emitting it completely by 2050, which scientists say would give us a 50-50 chance of staying below that 2-degree red line. Think about that. If we are able to transform our lives and the global economy from one that runs on fossil fuels to one that runs completely on sustainable energy in 30 years, we're still only giving our kids a coin flip chance of survival. So when 7 million young people went on strike for climate a couple weeks ago, I'm pretty sure this is what they were trying to make us understand. One thing to keep in mind is that right now, with just a 1 degree rise in temperature, we're seeing devastating impacts, particularly on people in countries that have contributed the least to our emissions problem. Climate change is a force multiplier for other major challenges we're dealing with, like poverty, racism, terrorism, resource wars, migration, among others, all of which will be supercharged by climate-induced resource scarcity and weather events. So global heating will impact all of us, but not equally. So here's how that might look close to home. If you're an elderly person living in public housing in the Rockaways, and a climate-fueled Hurricane Sandy cuts you off from your health care, you'd be grateful for the courageous neighbors, nurses, and social workers who are around to wade through knee-deep water to get you your medicines. But if you're living in Manila, when Typhoon Haiyan hit, which hammered Southeast Asia, those public services aren't likely available. And then imagine what happens to you and your family as those storms become stronger, more destructive, more frequent, which scientists say is likely. So yeah, this is a major, major emergency. Humans have lived on the planet for about 200,000 years, but unless we change course immediately, we're looking at a truly existential challenge to our species within the next 1 or 2 generations. This isn't just an environmental problem for environmentalists to solve. This is a civilizational problem for all of us to solve. We can no longer say we're stopping climate change. It's too late for that. But we can say we know this century ahead is going to be hotter, wetter, more dangerous, and difficult, but we're going to leave it all out on the field to make sure our kids inherit a livable planet. It's about survival. For many of us, including me, the climate crisis feels deeply personal. I have an 18-month-old daughter whose future I think about a whole lot. And it should feel personal because it implicates each of us individually. There's no way that we can get ourselves out of this mess on our own. As individuals, no matter how many plastic straws we don't use, how many city bike rides we take, I'm a big city bike fan, by the way, or how many burgers we pass up. Those are important, and we should do them, but they're not the whole game. Our addiction to oil, coal, and gas implicates everybody, and it makes it really tough for us to extricate ourselves and our families. By now, you might be tempted to throw up your hands and say, there's nothing to be done, so we might as well just live our lives and pretend the climate crisis isn't happening. That might work for a little while, for some of us. But the truth is that there is an incredibly important work to do. While we can't stop the planet heating up, we can still stop climate change from making the planet unlivable. If we can cooperate across borders to transform ourselves and our communities to meet this existential challenge, maybe we can also solve some of our other persistent challenges like poverty, bigotry, migration, and war. It's only by coming together here at Shul with our friends, neighbors, our community, and as part of a broader global movement, fighting together, shoulder to shoulder, that we'll be able to envision and build the sustainable, clean energy future we and our kids deserve. So I think this planet is too sweet to give up on, and I hope you'll find it in yourself to join the fight to save the two.
Wow, thank you. Straight to the bone. Much appreciated. Wow. I'm going to hand it over to Janna to ground us in ourselves and then invite us to turn to each other for a few moments of conversation before we open it to smaller groups. with actual action plans.
So first, let's actually take one giant collective breath with an audible exhale together. Yeah. So no matter how many times I hear the math or the science, I don't think it ever gets easier to stomach. And maybe part of you wanted to distract yourself or to think of something else or to run out that door. And for those of you leaving, we love you and we're with you and we understand because we often want to do the same thing too. But you all didn't. You stayed. And it takes a lot of courage to stay with the truth. And so in my work, I have the great honor of supporting people to build the capacity to be with the truth on the inner and also with the global crisis at hand. And so because tonight we're talking about change, I thought it would be good to do a little exploration about our personal relationship to change. So silently, you can go ahead and turn to someone next to you, someone you perhaps do not know or didn't come with, and it's okay if you want to stay safe right now and go with the person that's next to you that you came with, that's okay. Whatever it is, it's right. So go ahead and turn to someone next to you and choose who's going to be partner A and who's going to be partner B. We're going to get through this together. You know, there's some eyes rolling back and we're here, we're in it. Everyone got someone? Okay, so the first question here is, so you decided who's going to be partner A and who's going to be partner B, and partner A is going to start speaking while partner B receptively and openly and lovingly listens and witnesses. So partner A, what are the ways that you resist change in your own life? I know we started with the challenging one. What are some of the ways that you might resist change in your day-to-day? You don't have to think too big. We're going to have about a minute to share with partner B the ways that we resist change. And finishing up that thought. And now it's partner B, your turn to speak, and partner A to listen. Ways that you resist change. And finishing up that thought, that sentence. And we're going to move on to our second question here. And this time, partner B is going to begin. The question is, partner B, what does it feel like to embrace change? What might it feel like to embrace change? You have about 1 minute to share. About 10 more seconds. And now, partner A. What might it feel like, or what does it feel like, to embrace change? A few more seconds on this one. Okay, we have one more lightning round, a very quick one. I'm going to invite in your most creative and spontaneous responses and expressions. And the question is, if there's, oh, this one's for partner A, who's going to start on this one. So you're thinking who's going to go quickly and next. If there's one thing that we as a collective could change, what would it be? Go. Related to the climate, to anything, to the global ecosystem. What is one thing, exactly, thank you. What is one thing that we as a collective could change together? You can go as a group collective, let's say, or even as this community. You can go community or larger. Get as creative as you wish. We're gonna go 20 seconds on this. I can feel how generative that was. Partner B, your turn. Last time. There's one thing that we as a collective or as a community can change or could change. What would it be? It's 4 after. Okay, so you can feel almost how the energy started to pick up. We started to get creative and things started moving here. And so we're really beginning to see, I know I'm going to pull you back, got really exciting. I'm going to pull you back. We're beginning to see how much our lives depend on disrobing from comfort, from the status quo, and from business as usual. And so as we begin or continue to be with the truth of what we face, we remember that our pain for the world really stems for our deep love for it and for these lives. And as the great teacher Joanna Macy says, the heart that breaks can hold the entire world. And so that's really part of what we're here doing tonight and into tomorrow as we pray and as we step into the year. And as we remember, it is a remembering how to be in right relationship with ourselves, with one another, and with this earth.
Thank you, Janna. You already heard one monologue that Adena delivered that Stephen wrote within a week, I think, prompted to make tonight happen. Stephen Laughton is a playwright of British origin with Greek blood. I know because I've tasted his Greek dishes. They're delicious. Who currently has the official title of Writer-in-Residence at the Astrophysics Department of the Museum of Natural History.
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that, right? Thou shalt not covet. The astrophysics part. So Stephen wrote several monologues, again, just like the evening that we want to have with Darren and Ari and really screen an entire episode of One Strange Rock and talk about it to get our green team activated and thinking. We also want to have an event with Stephen and like deeper into theater, conversation, learning, maybe at the museum, per your invite, later in the year. So tonight is like a tastings menu because the work that Phil is introducing, the work that Janna is introducing, this is all, it's time for us to lean in way more into the science, the conversations, how we can really step into change. So the next piece is you and Ezra. Do you want to say something about it? Please.
Is this on? I can't really hear myself. Okay, great. So when we were talking about this initially, I was kind of, I get to work in this amazing building where I get to like wander around into the mic. I've done this before. Where I get to walk around this wonderful building that has meteorites that are millions of, like hundreds of millions, billions of years old, just kind of sitting in the place. And dinosaur bones and, you know, these great, huge beasts that kind of, I don't know, roamed around. Like all of these things that are awesome and awful and awe-inspiring. And so when we were talking about it, I just kind of wanted to, you know, we'd had a conversation between us all and I knew roughly what everyone was speaking about, and I just wanted to kind of respond to those things. And at the same time, we've seen a lot of the press of, you know, young people kind of being much better at this than any of us have been, actually. So I just kind of wanted to respond to it from that place of this young indignancy that we're seeing, this kind of like really, you know, actually how dare we be destroying all of these beautiful things. And I'm walking around this place with all of these remnants from every single age of this planet. And so I kind of just wanted to, and I was thinking about legacy, essentially. So I was thinking about, essentially, there's a big Tyrannosaurus Rex, and I was thinking, well, what if that was like the mother of us all, and, you know, the first kind of person to kind of look up, not person, thing to look after this earth. And she did it in a much better way than we ever could have done. And then the next one is kind of a warning, essentially, from the perspective of Mars. I was sitting in kind of in the planetary section where I work, and we've got all of these amazing rocks, and there's like rocks from Mars, from like an entire other world. And that's incredible, you know, and I was kind of thinking, what would that rock want to say, you know, from this world that the science suggests was, you know, billions of years ago, just as lush as our world. So we can look, if we don't stop, we can look right next door, we can look a couple of million miles away, and we can see what this is going to be. It's going to be a radioactive, dead world with poisonous water. So we just kind of have to stop. Sorry, I'm going out for one. But essentially, I just wanted to respond with those two voices. Kind of like the person before us, who was very much like, I gave you something beautiful and you've destroyed it. And the thing that's kind of after us, essentially saying, look what you did. Oh, is this? Ezra's around somewhere.
I'm Mars, a human enzyme inside of you. I am of you. I am Mars, a god of war. More fearful, more terrifying. Your brothers worshipped me. I'm Mars, a satellite, a small yellow speck in your dark, filthy sky. I am a long dead world. My water, too salty and acidic to sustain you. I am a poison. My lack of volcanic activity, unable to recycle basic chemicals. My atmosphere, too weak to protect from a solar wind. I am geologically dead. So are you. I am a nuclear wasteland. The promise of your future as we count our way to the end of our days. But it doesn't have to be like this. Not yet. For everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under heaven, right? A time to be born and a time to die. A time of war. And a time of peace. A time to waste. And a time to stop. Let this world breathe again. Let this world be full again. All that befalls you will befall everything in it. And as the world dies, so do you. Stop. Stop. You are a caretaker. You are supposed to take care. In 6 billion years, our sun will explode, leaving a faintly golden, glowing ember, a white dwarf, less than a millionth of its current volume and a fraction of its brightness, a tiny speck in a very filthy sky. And as it follows the rules implicit in the laws of thermodynamics, I'm sure you know, the star fades out. Because of entropy, the entire universe collapses. And once those very remnants of those very last stars have finally decayed away, and the universe reaches the same temperature, nothing happens. Nothing happens. And it keeps not happening. Don't help that inevitability along. Disorder into order forever? But for now, there is still everything. For now, we can impede the end. You are the image of the divine. And the divine created. But all you've done is destroy. This world, so beautiful. You are of dust. You will be dust again.
That was Stephen's cheerful version for tonight. This is the night of truth, atonement. And you've been patient, young Ella Sparrow. I will talk about you later with high praise. But I want to invite you right now to share a few passionate words with us, just like you did at Yobi Mitzvah and blew us all away.
Hi, my name is Ella Goodman, and I am a 13-year-old climate activist. I want to thank Amichai and Shul for inviting me to speak tonight and be a part of this panel. About a year ago, my humanities teacher showed me a video of Greta Thunberg, and I was inspired. That Friday, I left school, and I participated in a strike at the UN, and I've been striking on Fridays as much as I can ever since then. I also took part in the big climate strike a few weeks ago and will continue to strike and protest, perhaps for the rest of my life. Because of the way the current generation lives, I don't know what my future will look like. We don't know what our world will be like in 20 years. What animals will be left? What will life be like in cities that routinely flood or are experiencing more wildfires and extreme weather? The climate crisis is really scary, but we cannot let that stop us from dealing with it. We have to do more. We are currently not doing enough as individuals, as a country, and as a global community. But we can't lose hope and allow that to lead to inaction. We have to face the scary truth, and we have to do everything we can. The human species went from having very little to very much. We started in caves making arrowheads and fire, and now we have iPhones and factories and what some people think is limitless energy. When you go from so little to so much, it makes you want to just eat it all up as fast as you can. But we have to stop and think, or else it's dangerous. We don't have limitless energy. We're excited, but we need to slow down. It's like when you're really hungry, like I am right now, even though I've only been fasting for like 3 hours. And then you sit down to a meal and you just eat so much. And then your parents are like, Ella, slow down. Or maybe that's just me. Yom Kippur is all about reflecting on the past year and setting intentions for the next year for how we can be our best selves. I want to challenge each of you to think right now about how you can take better care of our planet. One of the worst things for the environment is flying. Can you fly less? Can you have a Skype call instead of traveling to a meeting? Can you take a vacation somewhere local? How else can you make changes in your life? Can you eat locally grown food? Can you compost? Can you drive a more fuel-efficient car? Everything you do counts. Everything. A few weeks ago, I had my bar mitzvah. So, I guess I'm an adult now. But let's be real. We all know I'm still a kid. But when I do become an adult, I don't want to change. I don't want my passion to go away. I don't want to be apathetic like so many adults I see who do not do enough to reverse climate chaos. I want to be an adult that is an activist. I want to be an adult that cares about human rights and about choices. I want to be an adult who doesn't just acknowledge climate change is real and not do anything about it. I want to be an adult that votes every chance I get. I want to be an adult that makes a change in this world.
Young Ella Sparrow. So you can imagine that when just a few weeks ago, a bunch of us were in a tent upstate where Ella had her beautiful bar mitzvah and led us in a speech that contained some of this energy. I went to her after and said, so we're starting this green team. I think you need to be the head of it. I'd like you to speak on Yom Kippur. Because first, like Phil said, you know, our kids and the energy of teens right now seems to be the kick in our butt that many of us, in some weird way, do not know we've been waiting for. And we're all in this together. And so having this energy is amazing. Thank you. Really, really. So here's what we want to do. Time's running out, not just for the planet, but for our being in this room tonight. We want you to continue on the conversation that Janna got us into in twos and take this into fours or fives, no more than 10 minutes, right? What time is it? 10:20. We have exactly 10 minutes to wrap this up. And what we want to do is ask, and we're going to ask Phil to maybe help guide this briefly, for you to share with each other one thing that you are seriously walking away from tonight thinking, I might want to get involved with that. This is something that I might actually want to put my teeth into. If it is a straw or legislation, joining our green team, working with 350, striking on Friday, going hang out with Stephen in the planetarium, we're going to do that. Really raise your bar. So Phil, walk us into these conversations, and then let's take minutes. We'll take a second at the end to say goodnight and be out of here by 10:30.
Well, this is actually what I really like doing, is giving people options for taking action. So a couple things that I just sort of thought about as Amichai asked me, like, what are some things that folks can do? I'm a fairly political guy, in case you didn't get that from the earlier piece. But a few things that I think we should be keeping in mind. One is that acting locally is critically important, and acting in community is really important. So as you cut your flying down and think about your food choices and think about your transportation and think about where your energy comes from, you're also getting together with folks here and thinking about what you can do as a lab shul community. In New York State, there's a group called New York Renews, which helped pass one of the boldest, most ambitious climate laws in the country this past year through the New York State Legislature, and they still have a lot more work to do, so you can check out New York Renews, and we'll send out a lot of this info afterwards, so you don't have to write this down. At the national level, if you're a young person, you might want to join some of the climate strikes, or you might want to get involved with the Sunrise Movement, which is, they're some of the folks who put the Green New Deal on the map and are pushing that forward and have some great plans coming up. You may, if you're feeling a little feisty and you want to get out there and lock yourself to something or stop some fossil fuels, you might want to check out Extinction Rebellion. They've been very busy this past week doing great work. Get yourself out of your comfort zone. And if you want to join a global movement to keep fossil fuels in the ground, you might want to check out 350.org. And so I say these things not because they're the only things to do. They're things that I'm familiar with. You know your community best. If you're organizing moms, organize moms. If you're organizing young people, organize with young people. If you want to get your golf club to get together and push for climate-friendly golf, do that. Figure out where you're most needed and engage there. So I think we should go to the small groups now.
So let's go back to that question on the screen. What is one personal change we want to commit to? If our green team is something you are interested in, it doesn't yet exist. It's waiting for the energy and the people and the ideas, and it's starting tonight. Ella is on, Melissa is on, maybe more of you. So take a few minutes, turn to each other, and talk honestly about what's one thing you might want to commit to this year. We got 5 minutes for this. So please, if you can, stay until 10:30. We'll appreciate the energy in the room. Turn to each other, and this is just for you. We won't be collected, though God is watching. So folks, I'm giving you another 30, 40 seconds or a minute. I see everyone's busy in conversation. And then we're going to come together and close. Okay. Friends, nothing saddens me more than interrupting these sacred conversations. But I'm going to ask you, please, to put a pause. And if you feel excited about this conversation, we can continue them throughout this year. Our green team will convene as you will step up with us to talk, to step, to rise. Stephen over here just made a vow to stop eating meat. It's Kol Nidre. Anybody joining him? Sarah's with you. We see a couple more brave. Okay. There are many more things that we can do about this. Let's not be glib. Let's be super, super serious. I want to end by asking us to take another breath together. Conscious of our breathing, our oxygen, our carbon, how we all in this together. Walking into this night and this year with more commitment and conviction and action and gratitude. To young Ella, rock on. To Stephen, to Phil, to Janna, to Ari and Darren, to Adena and Ezra, to all of you for being here tonight. Hopefully this last straw is our first next opportunity to rise. Good night. Shana Tova. Look forward to seeing many of you tomorrow morning on screens and in this room. Laila Tov. Good night and rise.